You're reading it and you're like, wow, once again, sorry, spoiler alert. I didn't know Miles Morales had a sister.
Whoa!
That seems pretty damn important. I am going to now go and buy a ridiculous amount of these. I literally did. I drove back to the LCS and I bought out the rest of them.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the VeVe Vantage Podcast. This is going to be a really good one that you want to listen to the very end because today we have a very, very special guest, SleepynComics. In this episode, we'll be talking about the undervalued comics on VeVe, how to build a comics portfolio with 1,000 gems, not financial advice of course, the utilities VeVe can add to make comics more valuable, and most of all, to attract more physical comic books collectors, interoperability, expensive mistakes to avoid, VeVe weaknesses and solutions to grow, and a lot more. Let's get to it. SleepynComic, what do you think about the current bear market, and does it relate to anything you experience yourself in the physical collecting space, and where do you think we'll go from here?
So I started collecting comics, periodically here and there, but really started getting into it probably about maybe 7-8 years ago. And it was just on the rise the entire time. Only now in the past, maybe, year or so, we've really seen it decline, and it's really fallen back, just like all collectibles, right? Obviously, we've seen that with VeVe and other ones, but yeah, I've been investing in things for, my entire life. So just like with stocks, they come and go. And so, I feel like the amount that I have invested, I'm comfortable with. So I'm okay with this bear market, in terms of what we're seeing with VeVe and crypto in general. So I just think that you have to, whenever you question things, and I think you should question things, you just have to go back to what do you feel most comfortable with? I'm comfortable with these IPs. I've met the owners of this company, obviously. I'm not friends with them or anything like that, but I've met them. And I'm just so curious to find out what happens in this.
Yeah, it sounds like you mentioned that there's been a decline in interest in physical comic books over the past 2 years. That sounds like there's a correlation with NFT and VeVe in particular too, right?
Yeah, it's just, I think some of the macro events, obviously the economy, depending on who you talk to, is in recession or whatever. I think, interest rates are higher. Are we going to have some sort of, event here where we don't know what's going to happen? Obviously, there's a war. I think all of these things. And I think that comics just like any asset, they just continue to go up and up and up and up and up. They had to adjust it some. So, and we're at that point. It makes sense. I think most things are down. You look at the stock market and other things, it's all down right now.
So, this is my first time meeting you, SleepynComics, face to face on camera. I had the pleasure of speaking with you on in Spaces before. So first of all, I just want to say it's really cool to be able to have this conversation with you today.
Oh, also, yeah. Sorry, I actually forgot to do an intro between us three. So yeah, I just went straight to the question.
Should we do that? Let's rewind that. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I had this fan on and then. All right, starting over. Go ahead. Go. You're going to edit this, right? Obviously. You're gonna
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's go with that. Start out with whatever introduction you want to do.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This is a podcast that I and Mr. V started. He actually named it. The first name that I came up, the VeVe Guy Podcast. And I think about this every single day. And I'm happy every single day that we didn't go with that name. So Mr. V came up with VeVe Vantage. And every single week we meet up for like once or twice and just talk VeVe. And I'm very glad to have you here today.
Oh, it's my honor to be here. I really appreciate the invite. I've watched your guys. I've talking to you guys maybe a couple of times in Spaces or other things, but yeah, no, it's so much fun. This is what's great about the community, is getting together, talking about VeVe. It doesn't get much better, or collectibles, anything in general.
Right. Yeah, lots of positivity and keeping things in perspective too, like staying balanced for sure. And that's something that I really admire from the work that you've done on your channel. And when you do join Spaces, you do bring a lot of positive value, not only like bringing positivity with your demeanor, but with your experience. You're super balanced, and that's really, there's a lot of value. There's a lot of, it's tough to find people who are able to do that and keep that kind of perspective. So thank you for what you've been doing, and looking forward to following you as you continue.
Thanks. It's great. Thank you for having me so much. Great to meet you guys.
All right. So I did have a few questions for you, but I what we generally do is we bounce back and forth quite a bit.
Okay.
Between Will and I. So just to start us off, one thing that I was curious is, with your experience with in real life collecting with comics, and now that you have some exposure to the digital assets, collectibles space, do you feel that your in real life collecting has helped you more with your digital collecting, or do you find that your digital collecting has made you a little bit better at collecting in real life with those physical comics or collectibles or what have you?
That's a great question. Great question. I think my physical collecting and investing has helped. Number one, it's helped me just be more patient. I think sometimes, and that's on both sides of it, right? So remember when things are pumping crazy, maybe you wanted to buy more, right? And that might have been good or might have been bad, right? Because I've been around for about a year and a half now. So as we know, about a year ago, things were great on VeVe, but obviously we've fallen from those highs. So I think trying to know that there's always, you don't have to jump on every opportunity. There's going to be more opportunities. Knowing that, trying to find value maybe where other people don't, and then trusting yourself, because once you've had some wins, no one seems to like this Ultimate Fallout 4 comic, but I know Miles Morales could be big, so I'm still going to buy a bunch of these commons because they weren't they sold out that day, but I don't think people really recognized what they would become later on when they were in the bull market, where I sold a lot of mine. So I think that those types of, which maybe those lessons that I learned in physical collecting have helped me in some of my digital collecting. And then the two kind of things that I always think about, because I've made a lot of mistakes in physical and on VeVe, we've all made a lot of mistakes, but there's so many times in which I would buy, in physical comics, I'd buy too high or I buy too many. And it's because I kind of got caught up in the FOMO, which is very easy. And so kind of understanding yourself in a lot of ways, and then always trying to ask the two questions that I tell people to ask constantly if you watch my channel is, if you're truly looking at a particular thing as an investment type thing, financial, but is what do you truly think this asset, this collectible, this comic is going to go to? And why do you believe that? You're just making it up, or are there other comparables that you can look at? And then, of course, when do you think it's going to get there? Is it going to get there in 50 years? Is it going to get there next month? What and really, why is that going to happen? What catalysts are going to make that happen? And so I started doing that a lot with my physical comics and other collectibles, and obviously on VeVe, and it served me well.
Awesome. And I guess there's a two-parter to this. You know how people tend to flip up on VeVe? Have you done the same with your comics?
Oh yeah. It's just comics, physical comics and VeVe in terms of that flipping up. And it's not just me. That's like all comic book collectors. They talk a lot about how you continually try to make profits and then buy, some of those grails or whatever you might want. And so my original channel, if you go back and look at like my very first SleepynComics video, which is with my phone, it's terrible. I sound terrible, whatever. But I just wanted to do spec comics that I thought didn't have much value, but were going to go up. They were sleeping comics, right? And I had been doing that myself for a long time. So of course I was like, I'm just going to do what I normally do, but instead I'm going to make videos. And so my very first video was on Venom 9, which, spoiler alert, sorry, is Eddie Brock's son. And at the time when that came out, the comic came out, and all of my comic spidey senses thought that this character could be huge. And so I did a video on it. And of course, it's a lot like my VeVe videos. Buy a couple of these, don't buy 50 of them, although maybe you should have bought 50 of them. But you know what I mean? Similar things. And so that was my first. So Venom 9 has always had a special place in my heart because of that. And Eddie Brock, spoiler. Maybe I shouldn't share what I'm going to. Anyways, Eddie Brock's son does become something big. I won't share that. If you want to look it up, obviously it's on Google. You can look. And I do think that they will repeat that story in the MCU. And so that if you, once again, looking at those catalysts for that book, when they finally revealed who Eddie Brock's son becomes, was a catalyst for it to become valuable. And then I think once we see him in the MCU, and then even now his story continues on. So, it's one of those things in comics, right? Do you think 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years ago, Eddie Brock's son, Dylan Brock is his name, will have life? I actually do. And not many characters, I think you can say that. So yeah, flipping up is a big thing that I've done again and again and again.
That's really cool to hear. I always wonder that because I haven't jumped into that world quite yet, mainly because I put most of my resources into VeVe's the collectibles, but it's a work in progress.
Well, and you learn, right? You have to learn the space. You probably, you're an expert. You two are both an expert in the VeVe space. So once you jump to another space, it's fine. You just have to make sure it's, same thing, learn, and a lot of people have contacted me because they're buying physical. And, I try to advise them. There's certain things you want to do and not do. And obviously they're learning that space and what they can and they can't do and where there's value. The other big one that I had was America Chavez. I had a bunch of her first appearance, which, at the time, nobody knew who that was. So that was that's been a good one for me as well.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised because there were a lot of inconsistencies in the MCU with the original storylines that caught me off guard. And I was kind of upset because of that. But, kind of to what you were speaking to with whether or not the MCU will be introducing these characters in due time or further down the road. So that is very interesting.
Yeah. And, they get multiple chances at them. They could blow it, and they have blown it before, right? With various versions of Hulk or whatever it might be that people don't like as much. And so, especially now they have the multiverse, right? If someone just hates a particular version of a character, they could get a different actor or actress and try it again.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey guys, just a quick message. Every week I, Mr. V, work over 20 hours to bring you the most non-BS VeVe content. English is my second language, and there were nights we recorded until 1 a.m. My brain stopped processing and I naturally spoke Vietnamese to him, and it got pretty weird. But that's just how dedicated we are to this podcast. In return, we ask you to enter a gentleman agreement. We will continue working until 1 a.m. for you, but we ask you to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a rating, and tweet at us to tell us what you think, because those comments will ultimately help us to refine the content just for you. That's it. That's all you need to do. Let's get back to it. So you also mentioned the spec comics, which are basically the newer superheroes, right? Or younger. So I have a question for you, which is, many of the Grail comics took decades to appreciate to their levels today. You have two in your background I can see. Should we even look at the younger Avengers or Strange Academy, knowing that they may take that long to become a household name? And where do you see these young superheroes and Marvel characters in the next 3 years?
No, it's a great question. And, modern comics, obviously, in the physical world, most people immediately put them in a sleeve and have a board behind them, and they take very good care of them. So the print run that you see, so let's say there's 50,000 of a physical comic printed, that's really what is going to be probably in circulation. Whereas in the olden days, they used to read them and throw them out and do terrible things to them. That's why when you look at AF-15 graded, there's only 2,400 or something like that. And maybe there's some raw, but there's probably not that many raw ones out there anymore because it's such a valuable comic, right? You're not going to just, have that and throw it around, right? It's probably worth tens of thousands of dollars. So, but I do think, and once again, you have, from an investment perspective, once again, if you love it, just buy it, right? But from an investment perspective, let's look at Strange Academy. There's tons of first appearances in there. It is now rumored. Before it was just like speculation. Maybe now it is rumored. And that's how it starts. There's rumors that they're going to do a Disney Plus show. Wong is going to be involved with it. There's all these rumors. Once again, there's been a lot of change there, so we don't know. But it's probably going to happen. And so that would be the catalyst for value, because really what you want is for a character to develop enough that it has a fan base, that you have kind of some crazy fans that will do anything for that character. And that's when you see, so if you can develop a character, and I can't remember what Strange Academy, but I think there's 20,000 of those. But if you can get a character so that there's 20,000 people that really love those characters, then you're off and running, because they'd be willing to pay. Now, are they willing to pay $1 million for a comic? No. But right now, I think that common is probably, $3, $4, $5. So would they be willing to pay $15 to get their, let's pretend they love one of those characters? Sure. They probably would be willing to pay 15. And so if you got it for 3 or 4, that's where you're going to see some upside. And I think that it's just putting it in perspective. I look for, I am not always looking for a times 10 return. I always like a double up. I always say that. So if you're looking, can we see a Strange Academy go from 4 gems to 8 gems? I think that's possible. I'm talking about the commons. I think something like that is possible if the show is good, people are attracted to it, but it's that fan base, right? And you're looking for all these things to work together so that you can create fans that are willing to spend their hard-earned money. That's really the key, right? You want, because right now when you say, okay, let's just back it up and say, well, the greatest one, the perfect example of it is Iron Man, Tony Stark. Okay, you rewind it before that Iron Man movie, and you walk around and say Tony Stark to people on the street, they are not going to know what you're talking. They're just going to look at you like. And so those movies were able to create that character that's so beloved now by literally the entire world that now, when you say this, and some people are die hard. They love Robert Downey Jr. They love Tony Stark. They look at the background on Mr. V's, like, you know what I'm saying? They love the suits. They are into Tony Stark. Are there 20,000 of those people in the world? I bet you there are.
Right. So the fan base of these young Avengers and the kids in these strange academies, are they in kindergarten right now, or they are guys our age? Because the value of these comic books also depends on the demographic of those who want to buy it, right? Do you see like people your age in your circle looking for these comics, or are they mostly for younger kids?
That was actually a pretty good read. If you read it, it's kind of the first year when they're at, and I think the parallels to Harry Potter are right there. Okay. We have our own little magic academy here. We have all these kids there that, different things happened. I mean, it's not exact, but you can tell that, Doctor Strange, shows up at the very end of the first comic. They have some, accident, and some big monster comes out and he helps out, right? So he's not there. They have a faculty there, very similar to Harry Potter. Some of the faculty you would recognize and some of it you wouldn't. The kids are very different. They go through different, Anyway, so, and the first run represents, a year. So you could see it. You can already see it playing out in Disney Plus. We're going to have the first season be the first run, all these things, right? And so, yes, maybe you're right in terms of that. There would be younger people that would like it. But just like Harry Potter, if it's a good show, I think adults will like it. Maybe their kids will, Disney, of course, prays that one of these kids or characters becomes huge. They can sell a bunch of their, bunch of the action figures, it's the best one that I can think of is Baby Yoda, right? So Baby Yoda is obviously like a little baby. So who would, you'd think only kids would want to buy a Baby Yoda. Oh no, everybody buys Baby Yoda.
That's a really good point. This is actually a great segment to a topic that it's been discussion within the VeVe community and a big concern for Mr. V too, who collects specimen collectibles, which is interoperability. You obviously own a good amount of valuable comics and collectibles in general. Behind you, you have your comic books in your room, so you have it there with you. Are you concerned that you actually don't really own or you don't hold your VeVe comic books or collectibles in your own wallet, or you are okay with that?
No, I think it's a valid concern. And I think that, okay, so let's look at both sides of the picture. So if you're, total Web3, like OpenSea, and I'm not an expert in this stuff. So if I say something a little bit wrong, I apologize to you. I apologize to your audience. But, the concepts are there. You can, you have your own wallet. You want to be a MetaMask or whatever. You can pull it out. You can put it in cold storage. If that company completely blows up, like you have that token in your wallet. If their servers go bye-bye and you put it in cold storage, you still own it, right? Here, we're on layer 2 that, I know people that are even questioning if that's, it's obviously a blockchain, but they consider if they don't even like layer 2 at all, and we don't have the keys. So there's no way for us to get this stuff, put it in cold storage. So the only record that we own this stuff is on IMX, but it's not like it's worthless. So just pretend it was completely a Web 2 company. Then the records would be in a SQL database that would be private that no one would know. So it is on a public forum, IMX, that you can see. They don't know how much I paid for it, but you can see that my wallet and all these things are in there. So I can always go back to that. I think about like in a court of law or something like that and say, look, I had these tokens in here. There's no record in this particular blockchain that they are moved out. So from that sense, there is a record, public record, that I own these. But as you know, we don't know what happens if VeVe goes out of business. We don't know if Disney or whomever pulls their license out of, we don't know if Marvel could pull out their license with a 24-hour notice or they have a 2-year. We don't know anything like that, right? And that would devalue everything. We don't know. Maybe it would keep value because they're going to keep all the tokens and just transfer them over. And then Marvel's going to do their own blockchain, their own project. We don't, there's so many unknowns. And so what I say, and this is once again, just me, just SleepynComics, is I am okay with the unknown because I think that it's the future. I think I'm along for the ride. I'm curious about it all. I love comics. I think there's more upside than the chance that it all fails and goes to zero, which it could, fail and all go to zero. But it's intriguing enough that I'm along for the ride. And there is a lot, for me, telling me more unknowns is good because you should know. You can't be like a fool and just stick your head in the ground, in the sand, right? But I have not yet heard an unknown that makes me want to just jump ship and leave it all. And so, now has it been frustrating that they have been really slow to execute on a lot of these, objectives, and they've given us timelines and they failed and this and that. And yeah, it's frustrating, but I still think the grander and greater vision is there, and I'm willing to stick it out and see where it takes.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you, where, nothing's really startled me to the point where I want to exit or execute my exit strategy quite yet. So, in that same vein, I think that has a lot to do with the amount of exposure that we have to particular collectibles, especially like when we're that much more confident in the items that we have in our portfolio, if you will. I was curious, with your physical comics, how do you feel like you've allocated your resources? Like, is there a percentage specific to an age or era, or if that makes sense? So like maybe those initial runs of those comics that came out, like Journey into Mystery 83, I think, or 85, right? That's with Loki.
83 and 85. 83 is Thor, and 85 is Loki. Both great books.
Or anything along from that era. Do you feel like you keep a close eye in terms of how much resources you allocated to that era and then the following era, and find some sort of balance? And I guess the same question would apply to not only your physical comics but your digital collectibles and comics.
I mean, I think it comes down to this question of, and you have to be honest with yourself, whatever. When you're buying that thing, is it more for a collector or as an investment? And it's hard because you got to talk to yourself. You got to be, it's like a weird conversation with yourself, and it changes. Sometimes you're like, I love it. But then later on, you're like, I just want to, so things change in your own mind. But I would say that in terms of money, most of my physical comic book collection is things that I like, characters that I like. So for example, I have a full run of The Last Miles. It was great. It's a great run. I recommend anybody, every single book. I bought them and read them. You know what I mean? So, and I have multiples of a lot of them, right? Including really, really key ones, and that's the advantage of it, is when you're reading it. And that's this is an advantage we don't have at VeVe, is you're reading it and you're like, wow, once again, sorry, spoiler alert, I didn't know Miles Morales had a sister.
Whoa.
That seems pretty damn important. I am going to now go and buy a ridiculous amount of these. I literally did. I drove back to the LCS and I bought out the rest of them. And then
wait, so you bought some?
I order them, pre-order them 90 days in advance from this website shop. And then I get a very good discount. So instead of $4.99, I'm buying them for like $2.40. Okay. You can do it too. It's not just me. Anybody can do that. Right. And so when you're buying comics at $2 and whatever, 39 cents or whatever it is, or maybe it's 69 cents, whatever it is, just like on VeVe, right? When you're buying them, you kind of buy whatever you want. You can take some swings at things. Right. And then when I know it's a really big book, I'll go to my LCS and buy more of them. And that's the case in this. As I mean, it's such a, if you've been collecting comics for 10 minutes, you're like, oh, this is going to probably be a pretty big book. So actually, surprising, not a lot of people were into it. It wasn't until later that there was another new character called Spider Zero in the future that had that little same thing that she had in her crib on her backpack, that people are like, well, maybe she becomes Spider Zero in the future. And they're like, we should go find that book. So yeah, anyways, that's comic collecting. But VeVe is similar in that I collect a lot of things that I love. So 50 to 80% of my comic, I bought AF-15 not as an investment, although it's so expensive. It's basic that that I just love Spider-Man. So a lot of my comics are not because, oh, it's a Silver Age, answer your question. I really like Hulk and I wanted to get Incredible Hulk #1. And so I did, so, but there are specific books. So when I was more into comic book collecting, forget VeVe ever existed, I would say to myself, I'm never going to spend, I've broken this rule, by the way. I'm never going to spend more than $100 on a comic that's pure spec comic, that I don't like the character. I hate the character. I'm just buying it from a, investment perspective. So I don't have as much of that. The other thing which happens and can happen on VeVe and has happened is, doesn't happen in the comic book world on VeVe because all the comics that we get on VeVe are good. They're all key comics. There's nothing really, we haven't gotten to really, people are like, oh, this is a trash comic. No, you guys haven't seen trash comics. There are some trash comics in the world, right? And so you can get into, if you're really focusing, you're like, you can find reasons to buy comics that are crazy and then they never pan out. Perfect example is I like playing Dungeons and Dragons as a kid. I play Dungeons and Dragons with my friends twice a month still with some of my high school friends. So it's great. The movie was coming out and I was like, but I already own a lot of Dungeons and Dragons comics, the original. Like I own 1 through 10 and so whatever. But somebody told me that wasn't the first appearance of Dungeons and Dragons in comic. What? I've not heard of this before. It's not in any of these. And apparently the first appearance is actually an ad in a different comic. It's like an X-Men comic. I can't remember. So of course I went and bought that comic, a couple of them. They were only like, $2-3, but they haven't done anything. That was too much of a reach, right? That's what I mean. Like your brain gets so anything could happen, And so, but I recognize that as some of the fun of collecting comics is trying to make these odd connections and maybe they pan out and maybe they don't.
Actually, I have a follow-up question on that because there's this argument in the community of, oh, the first appearance, well, I am a total beginner. I don't know much about comics, so I'm going to get a few facts wrong. But there's been this argument of, oh, this character, like the Hulk, showed up in this comic book as a cameo or something like that. But this is the first, but there's also another comic book where it's his official first appearance. So in your physical comic book circle, what do you consider to be first and what do you consider to be more valuable? Is that just a random appearance or first full appearance?
It's all over the board. And it's a big, before VeVe, before anything. So that's not even a VeVe thing. That's just, So the big one that everybody always cites is, of course, Hulk 180 and Hulk 181. So Hulk 180 at the very last page, Wolverine appeared. He says, I'm the Wolverine. Full costume. And he says, I'm the Wolverine in Hulk 180. And then in Hulk 181, he's in the story and he fights Hulk and etc. So what they call Hulk 180 is a cameo, and his first full appearance is in Hulk 181. And so what happens is you don't know, but there are examples where it's not where you just see the character and that's now the first appearance. So it's all kinds of, it's never consistent. It's somewhat consistent, but not always consistent. And so what I find is generally over time, the market just dictates what it is. So and you'll find diehard people that want to punch it out. But most people consider Wolverine's first full appearance to be Hulk 181. So that book is much more expensive than Hulk 180. But there's other weird things that have happened too with various characters. One of the interesting things that when I first joined VeVe, and one of the reasons why I started talking about it on my channel and started saying things, is that the very first Hulk appearance in VeVe was Immortal Hulk 1. And people kept saying this is the first appearance of Hulk, which it isn't the first of Hulk. It isn't even the first appearance of Immortal Hulk. But whatever. It was, so the first appearance of Hulk is Incredible Hulk #1. And the first appearance of Immortal Hulk is like Avengers 664 or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but something like that. Okay. And but what happens is let's just pretend Incredible Hulk, they bring that to VeVe. They probably will. So let's just pretend it's worth $1,000. A common's worth $1,000. Okay. It's too expensive for most, but they love Hulk. So then they might go to another key of Hulk. And that's super expensive. So then you're just grabbing, you're like, I love Hulk so much. You know what I'm going to get? I'll tell you what I'm going to get. I'm going to get the very first appearance of Hulk on the block. And then you'll see Immortal Hulk probably go up in value, but it might take a while. That's generally these secondary or third keys go up in value because the other keys get out of reach. That's what you generally. So when people say, is this trash? Should I just throw this out? I'm like, no, but it might take a while.
I kind of want to make sure that you have a chance to talk about these.
Oh yeah.
I got one of the original ones, but
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I got new ones coming out. So we'll see. Hopefully I got to check in with the guy. He's making them right now. So
Nice.
They should turn out pretty good. I mean, they're basically the same, but they're black.
Mhm.
So I'm excited. I think they'll be cool. I think they'll be really cool.
Good deal.
So let's get back into it.
Yeah. Can you show that comic book that you just showed me again, please?
Yeah. Just for fun. Yeah. Well, we're talking about it. So this is my Hulk, Incredible Hulk #1. It's only a 1.8. It's pretty good shape though for a 1.8. And there's only about 1,400 of these graded, all grades. So it's a pretty rare book.
What is the significance of that comic book that you hold?
So this is the first appearance of Incredible Hulk. So,
okay.
Yeah. It's an expensive one. I think it's probably worth maybe $15,000
for that grade.
Yeah, maybe not.
Wow.
Maybe it's gone down now. Okay, maybe it's $12,000. But it's a pretty spendy.
Wow.
I wouldn't want to drop it.
I actually so you have like a frame for it, and then a frame for the frame.
Yeah, so it's
like
in this. And this is a specialized one. It's kind of sturdy, and then this is a UV piece of glass to protect it from the sun. Even though I never take it out in this.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean it's $12,000, so I do want to protect it somewhat. So
yeah. So how much did you pay? Did you pay less than 5 digits for it originally when you bought it?
I paid about that. So it's gone down. So I paid what it went up and I was excited and now it's gone back down. So I'm probably about even on it.
Okay. I do have a follow-up question on your last point regarding the first cameo appearance and the first full appearance. You mentioned that the physical comic book folks prefer the first full appearance, but on the blockchain, a lot of people will care about first on the blockchain, right? So for you personally, which one do you value more?
In the VeVe world, we're going to want to get, in the comics, we're going to want to mirror what has happened in the physical world. So if they came out with Hulk 180 and Hulk 181, you'd want 181 if you could get it, but you'd probably want to get both, right? But then because that medium has already been kind of figured out. But if they come out with Wolverine, the collectible, maybe it's a Marvel Mighty, maybe it's we don't know, right? Maybe this is but I think there will be value in that first appearance on the blockchain in whatever medium they have. So that's most likely going to be a collectible. We don't know if it's going to be a Marvel Mighty or if it's going to be one of the premium ones. We'll see. Obviously, we've seen both. So yeah, I think that will be the one that you'll want to get. But what's odd now is that because, we don't have as many users, if they were to come out with another version of it and it's not, but it's super, super scarce, it could actually have more value. The example is C-3PO. So the first appearance of C-3PO is the Golden Moments. There was 10,000 of them. And unfortunately, it was worth a lot. And now, I don't know, I'll guess it's, 200-300 gems. Yeah. But they came out with that droid set where C-3PO is in there again. And I don't know. Is he the secret rare? He might be the secret rare. I can't remember what he is, but he's one of the scarcer. And I think there's only 400 or 500. And that C-3PO is maybe 600 gems. So it's more valuable than the first. So we could see that. And that's kind of what it's tough because people then now they're I don't know what collectors are going to want to get all of them, right? You're going to want the first appearance. You're going to want the most scarce. And so if you get in the mode, once again, if you're purely looking at it from the investment perspective, there was money to be made on both. In other words, if you got first the Golden Moments on drop for 60 gems or whatever it was, and it went up to 8,000 gems, there was money to be made all along there, right? And then with the other one, I think it came out, and I don't even know it might have been 80 gems as well. And then projecting forward, I don't know what it's gonna be going forward, but there was money to be made there. Which one will be worth more going forward? I would bet that the rare one will move up more and faster than the other one. But we don't know, right? But there is an advantage to the other C-3PO because it is connected to that kind of, now it's its own set with R2-D2, but it's that first season of Golden Moments, and having that entire set with Walt is significant. People want that. So that gives it a little bit of extra juice. Probably in the end, if VeVe is successful, they're both pretty valuable.
So speaking of the older collectibles versus the newer ones and the varying scarcity across the board, right? How have you found yourself to adapt as these new collectibles and comics roll out. Because, just as an example, I was talking to Will about this the other day. I have really shifted my approach, my strategy, basically every time VeVe releases some new information, right? And I think it's kind of like that saying, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And what comes to mind is like, I feel that much more inclined to at least make some minor adjustments as I find some new information out. So, over the past, like, let's say month or two, how do you feel that you've adapted to the current climate news, as information has rolled out?
I mean, it is, there's a lot of different things that we've learned over the past 6-8 months, year. And the environment from macro level is obviously different. And then specifically about VeVe. Unfortunately, they really just haven't had a lot of things that they have promised they've been able to roll them out. I mean, and I think they're doing better right now. I think the hiring Mitch seems to really have helped them out. One of the things that I have been watching, because when I've been involved with a lot of tech companies, tech teams, et cetera. So most tech teams are on like what's called a 2-week sprint. Once again, depends, different things, but that's very common. So you work and develop for a week, and then you test for a week, and then you put it into production, you put it live, and then you do it again and again and again. And that cadence is really important. And not biting off more than you can chew is very important. So in other words, if you have a really sophisticated piece of functionality that might take, let's just say 6 weeks, you don't program it for 6 weeks and then launch it. You cut that thing into smaller bites, and then you launch those bites. And that allows you to continually move in the right direction. That's not like, I didn't like make that up. That's like standard. A lot of companies, not all companies, but a lot of companies manage their software development in that manner. And so in watching them now, it's interesting. What do we get? We're getting since Mitch has taken over, we're basically getting these advancements, albeit small, and people don't like that, but there's still advancements every 2 weeks. And I see that as progress, because in the end, it's not that there is no destination here. We do want the VeVeverse. We do want MCP completely to be rolled out. We do want all these things. But even once we get there, we're going to want more things. It's the fact that they've proven that they have processes in place that allow them to get to wherever they want to go, including adapt quickly. That will make me more confident in what is going to happen in the future. And I think that what we've seen, at least to this point, I like better than seeing nothing for 2 or 3 months, because once again, I mean, I don't like it because I don't like to see nothing, but I also go back to some of the fundamentals of what I've seen in software development. And I'm like, what happened here? Like, and I get you're trying to do difficult things, but can't you break it up into smaller pieces and kind of push it out piece by piece, right? And so I've really liked that. But in terms of changing up my philosophies, I have become a person who buys a lot in the comic. I see those as very low risk. Are relatively scarce now. I mean, we've seen, a lot of 7,500, 10,000, even 5,000, even 3,000 comics. And so buying these comics at 5, 10 gems, and they're great comics. A lot of them are great comics. If we can get more users and we can see some traction that we all talk about, getting to 20, 30 gems, I think is very possible, which is a triple. I'm in the triples. So that's been I did buy a lot of secret rares in the past, but that was the most scarce. I thought that had the most upside. And for now, for me, even though the secret rares are relatively inexpensive now, like you can get some of these newer secret rares, 150 gems, sometimes, 300-400 gems for really good ones. I think I did make an exception. I did buy giant size X-Men #1 secret rare. I think it was 400 gems is what I got it for, and it's moved up. And so that was the one exception. But for the most part, I have changed my philosophies on a lot of these. Well, and we'll just see where it goes. That's really kind of what it's at right now. Maybe I don't want to put as much in. Maybe that's a part of it too.
And do you find that your way to mitigate that higher level of risk by avoiding focusing on the mints so much and just concentrate on, maybe meeting those 3 copies or so to be able to, keep one, sell one, and then figure out what to do with the third one later on?
Yes. I mean, the mints I think are significant. I have never been a really big mint chaser. Of course, if there's 5 on the floor, I'm going to take the lowest mint, right? If I see a special one, I'm going to buy that, So, but I do recognize that there's a premium for those lower mints, 3 digits, 2 digits, whatever it might be, depending on what it is. And so I have been I look at those as, secret rares that they really are in a lot of cases one of ones, very scarce. You can't get any more scarce than that, right? But you just have to find the right person that's willing to give you that. And so if you're paying a huge premium for them, you're just trying to find the person that values it as much as you. And so it's just a tougher sell. So I haven't been as interested in those, although my exceptions are I do have the 41 Daredevil and the 41s. I guess I made exceptions.
No, I remember seeing that whole series of events go down with you acquiring those. And then I think you flipped like a 42 for...
Well, I'm a huge Silver Surfer fan, so I wanted to get the top ones. And so I saw, and it goes so fast in the beginning, you don't know where these prices are going to be. And so I can't quite remember, but a 43 was sitting there. It was quite expensive, but not crazy. And so I was like, I'm just going to grab it. So I grabbed it. But then the 42 appeared and it wasn't that crazy. So I grabbed it. And then finally I negotiated a guy for the 41 and it was pretty. So I bought it and then I did make some profit off of the 42 and the 43 because and the problem with those one of one mints, and I know you buy those as well, some of those special ones, is you really have to have a plan because you don't want to overpay, but you're gonna overpay for them because they're one of one.
Yep.
It's a difficult. I know you and some others that are really into it. You guys know how to navigate it more. I probably overpaid for both my Daredevil 41 and for you guys would have done a better job than I did in terms of negotiating those.
Well, I think you'd be surprised to find that, like for myself, yes, I have focused on special mints, but I do like making sure that they all match across the board. So like, I mean, even, and here's this me like kind of talking about it with like our listeners. I'm a big Marvel fan and I wanted the same mint number across the board. And I think by doing that, I'm creating additional value, regardless of what I do, whatever premium I do pay. But of those collectibles that I am gathering, accumulating with the same mint, I actually like those characters a lot. And so I don't have a problem. I don't feel bad like if I do pay a crazy high premium because I want to hold on to them. Much like you may find with your in real life comics, you're just accumulating regardless of what the price may be. You're just a fan and price doesn't quite matter as much. And so kind of like as time goes on, because I'm pretty much like this is my first go at collecting between in real life and the digital space. And I'm enjoying it a lot. And, as with most other people as many other people are starting to realize when they have joined VeVe, they're starting to collect in real life. And so I'm looking forward to that next step in this progression, I guess.
It's interesting because, depending on who you talk to, especially if you spend some time on Twitter where it can get really negative, a lot of the people say, most of the people here are just investors, which there's truth, but it's both. There's people that are collectors and investors. You can be both at the same time. And you can wake up in the morning and be more of an investor. And by the time you go to bed, be more of a collector because it's very personal. It's just like you can be bullish on VeVe and bearish at the same time. People don't understand that. You can really be frustrated with them, but understand the greater vision. I think sometimes when we're talking to various people or seeing various posts, you only see one. It's very binary, right? Which in reality, it doesn't have to be. Now, I do believe that, once again, love it or hate it or make excuses or whatever, that, a year ago we had, I don't think we had 2 million. I don't think anybody thinks we had 2 million users.
No way.
We probably had 25,000 users. And if you look at a lot of the, metrics that, by VeVe Fox and Omi Daily, it seems like there's like 5,000 wallets that are really active. And that seems about right. They put a comic up there for 7,500. It sells out. A bunch of us have duplicates because if there was 10,000 people, not all of us would be able to get duplicates and everything. You know what I mean? So when the 5,000 wallet thing seems right to me right now. And I look at that number as this is their core users. This is the people they have to please. And these are the people that are going to take them to the next level if they can retain these 5,000.
Yeah, I also work in tech. And so this is my take on that 2 million, 10,000 and 5,000. I think they were honest when they mentioned 2 millions because I think there were actually 2 million user IDs that they collected, 2 million accounts created in their SQL database. but then, you know, a lot of them were bots, right? Probably like 90% or 95% of them are bots. So that's why we went from 2 million to tens of thousands and then the 5,000 core active. But I mean, like a lot of people said, oh, there's no 2 million. I bet you that there are 2 million accounts created, but, you know, 2 million account created by 15,000 people, you know, instead of 2 million people. So that's just my take on it. And you brought up a really good point. I have a few more questions, and this is from a member from the community. What do you think about VeVe exclusive covers? Do you value them, or do you think they are just something and not that fun, or like not worth the opportunity cost?
I think I value them like I do variant covers for comics, which is the good ones people are going to want. And they have a lot. So in a physical comic book that comes out, there might be, 10 different ones that have 10 different variants. Some of them are really rare. Some of them are not. But the ones that people like and are really gorgeous, and the ones that are really, really gorgeous tend to really, really go up in value. I think maybe in the beginning when we didn't have as many, they had more value. But I just looked at them as incredible art. And I think there's value in people like collecting awesome art. Now, on some of the more, grail books, yeah, they're going to be valuable because of the scarcity as you go up the rarities. People like scarce things, and so, they'll have value. But and then you never know. There are people, and I already know those people. These people too, that they're just like they only collect the UR because they love the VeVe exclusive and they have great artists, and so that's another thing. What I have found, and I've said this before, if you collect something very odd, let's just pretend, so my perfect example was I collected a lot of, I don't know if you're Star Wars, Admiral Thrawn comics. I'm really into Admiral Thrawn, okay? I have been for a long time. I loved the character when I read it back in 1990, and nobody else gave a damn about it. And I actually didn't give a damn about it because I didn't even think, they're ever bring them back into Star Wars or all that stuff. But there is a segment of people like me that did collect those comics. But you could buy Thrawn 1 through 6. That was his first run. They were less than $1. Like you could maybe get a pack of all 6 for like $5 or $10. Okay. But now that he's coming to the Star Wars universe and all that thing, all these comics have gone crazy. So my point is you can collect anything that you personally like, and you never know. Somebody might come along that's like-minded and provide value. And if you have enough of those people, yeah, I think anything can have value. I bet you, the funny thing is I know guys that collect comics with people blowing bubbles, bubblegum. They collect covers that, so within the or people who collect red covers, they just love that's a gorgeous red cover. I need to get that one. They don't even care. They just like red covers. You know what I mean? So there will be a segment, I bet you, if you go forward and 10 years where they'll be like, I collect VeVe exclusive comics, but only the ones that have blue in the background. I don't know. You know what I mean? There'll be some.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I want to tell a quick story because this is kind of mind blowing. So I invited this huge whale to the interview, and I'm super happy that he agreed to come on. And Mr. V also know this guy. So when I checked his VeVe collection, I noticed a few collectibles with mint 5280. I was like, why is this huge whale collecting 5280? It's not a year. It's not a date. There's no significance in it. So I had to ask him, and he was like, he's based in Colorado, and Colorado is 5,280 feet from sea level. And I was like, wow, that's awesome, man. So there's all these, because you mentioned like, there are people who just collect comic books with bubble gums or whatever, or like a blue cover. That is so cool. That is that's like next level.
And that's why, people who are becoming collectors, I think they all start maybe as investors or whatever, but they find their niche, and whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And then it's very personal because
zip code.
When I'm collecting things, it's like what I want to collect. It's not what my wife wants to collect. It's not what kids want to collect. It's like what I am into for that. And it changes too. Like sometimes, like long ago, maybe I was into collecting this type of comic, but now I'm suddenly, I really want to collect Avengers comics or whatever it might be. It's okay. It's your game. It's your collecting journey.
Yeah. So my next question is on marketing. I assume you have talked to your friends in the physical comic books about VeVe. What are the resistance or the friction or things that people say when you told them about VeVe or like reasons why they don't want to join VeVe? And maybe as a solution, what do you propose the company to do in order to onboard more of your friends within the physical comic books circle?
So, as you know, my channel was around about a year and a half or so before I started doing VeVe content. So I was able to meet a lot of people in the community, and I know not everybody, but I know quite a few comic book YouTubers, including some of the ones that have really large channels. So that's great. And I've been on a lot of their channels. They've been nice enough to invite me on, ask me questions about VeVe. The good thing is, I would say a lot of the people that I know in the community, the YouTube video people, both people that kind of watch and other YouTubers, they are aware of VeVe. Before, they literally didn't know it. The negative, of course, and I was just on somebody's channel, I think maybe a week or two ago, they just hate NFTs. It's like you said something bad about their mom. And
wow.
And so and I always say when I'm on the channels, I'm like, I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to tell you to do it. I'm here. If you want some questions, my DMs are open. You can ask me, I'll tell you why I'm doing it, but I'm not pushing anything on you. I'm not trying to convince you of anything, but it's now, and obviously now they've come back in price. So they hated them before because they thought it was a scam. And now they have been proven, right? They were, these things were worth, $10,000 and now they're worth $200. See, I told you it was a scam. So it's all kind of like, but my take on it is it's fine. Those people can they can love it or hate. It doesn't affect me at all. And that segment is, I think there's probably about 100,000. That's my guess. 100,000 really core comic collectors in the world. And so, there might be 1,000 of those 100,000 people that are in VeVe, because there are physical comic book collectors in VeVe, and maybe we'll get another 5% or something like that. And that's okay. Those other people can collect what they want. They can do their thing. Digital collecting, in my mind, and VeVe might not be the one that survives. I don't know. Maybe it'll be HRO. Maybe it will be Backhouse. We don't know, right? But digital collecting is going to be somebody is going to, and it might be fragmented. So it's, like we're seeing all these different things. Some people might like HRO more, whatever. Maybe Pokemon comes in and dominates everything. I don't know, right? But those people might never make the jump and say, I want to do digital collecting. They're just so resistant. You just can't, it's like my grandma. Okay. God bless her. She's passed away. She just never really liked microwave. There's nothing wrong with the microwave, but she just was freaked out by it. You're going to get cancer. You could explain it to her 100 times, right? It just heat your stuff up in the oven. There's no reason to use that microwave. You know what I mean? That's what you would say, I don't know, but, and you couldn't convince her, right? It didn't matter. You could try to explain it to her. I think that from my experience, unless something changes, the bulk, the majority, there's nothing that I know of, I can think of. Because the harder it's like one of those things where the harder you try to push someone, the more they become resistant. So here would be the worst thing you could do. Marvel would be like, we're not making any more physical comics. We're only doing NFTs. That would be terrible, because they would just go crazy, right? And Marvel wouldn't do that because they know they would go. And so any push on them gonna be, in my opinion, is not gonna go well. Now, here's another thing. So I said in one of I can't remember now, I've done some, I said, bat cows, if you owned a bat cow NFT and you were in New York, I think it was last year, you could have met Jim Lee. You could have seen the Black Adam movie, the premiere. That's pretty cool. So like for me as a comic book collector, not in my wildest dreams would I think I'd ever meet Jim Lee. I mean, you could when he's doing signings, but you know what I'm saying, right? And so you'd think as a comic book person, if you said, if you got this ticket, you could meet Jim Lee, they would be like, oh, that's interesting. I'd like to get this ticket. No, they're all like, no, F you. I don't care. I hate NFT. So they just don't like it, which, you could say, if you had this NFT, they're going to resurrect Stan Lee and you could meet him and get your book signed. I hate NFT. And that's fine. That's just their game. We got to let them do their thing. You nothing wrong. Even if you talk to people who are like, you try this one on them. Hey, a lot of the people that are collecting NFTs are now collecting comic books. So they're entering that market. We're getting more people collecting physical comics now. Doesn't that make you happy? Nope. Hate NFT. There's no, from what I can see, once again, any one person can be open-minded, but as a bulk group, from my opinion, doesn't say. And once again, maybe something will change. I pray I'm wrong. But from what I can see at this point in time, 90% of them are highly resistant. And then it's like an echo chamber, right? I hate NFTs. You hate NFTs. We all hate NFTs. And then it's just nothing can be done. So it's a heavy lift for VeVe. How do you create new digital collectibles. The good thing is they have these IPs that your audience for Marvel is, I don't even know, 1 billion people. And I'm not exaggerating. You know what I mean by that? Your audience for Walt Disney and, these movies is, literally 1 billion people. So you got a big pool to try and grab fish out of. You just got to figure out how to go fishing and grab those people.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the utilities aspect of it, because I bet you people might be very resistant to NFTs, and that's why David and Dan and Alfred kind of name it digital collectibles instead of NFTs. If they get an opportunity to go meet Jim Lee and talk to him, or go to this special Marvel event just because they own a $30 VeVe digital comic book, I bet you a lot of people will be willing to buy that NFT just to get that opportunity. And then maybe along the way, they kind of realize, oh, next week VeVe's kind of drop this. And I think using utilities is a really good way for them to get into the game. And I love that example.
It is. We need to, and obviously VeVeverse is a part of that too. That's the infamous next question you get, and it's sales. I've done a lot of sales too, so you got to walk them through that path. So the first door to get them through is, are they actually legitimately? Because some of the comic book collector people I talk to literally are not interested. So you can't sell to them; they don't want it, right? Then it's the next door they have to get through is they're going to say, well, they might ask how much it costs. So let's just pretend you want to try and sell Marvel Mighties, and they're $13 a shot. So maybe you can, well, right now the Marvel Mighties are like $6 a shot. But you can get through that door. They're like, cool, I got $6. And then the next question is going to be what you just said is, what do I do with these? Well, you take pictures with your friends with them, but that's your point, which is the utility. If you could, this is where the VeVeverse comes into play, and some of these other aspects that they're trying to build, which is one of the reasons why I think it is important to have the VeVeverse and to have some of these other things built out, is that then you have answers for every one of those questions. Because that's, when you're selling, you have to have an answer to these questions. That's how you complete the sale. And so that, as they build that out, and some of that is out of their control, or I think it's out of control, which is maybe it doesn't really catch fire because people don't understand it until there's AR glass. And maybe they don't. And this is the same problem that anybody who's making AR glasses, it's like a chicken and egg issue, which we know, which is I don't even know how much it costs to do research and development on AR glasses, billions of dollars. I don't have a clue, but I bet you it's expensive, right? So we're going to mass market and produce these AR glasses, and they're going to ask the same question. What do I do with these things other than that they look goofy on my face? So it's just, and yet VeVe needs the AR glasses because that could take it to the next level. And so it's all these things. So you really do need a company that has just literally money to burn, like an Apple or a Microsoft or a Facebook or something like that, because then they can endure those first 2, 3, 4 years as they're basically taking losses, and it becomes, they can develop their own marketplace when most people don't have the money to do that at all. And I think about the watch, right? I have an Apple Watch. I don't know how many of these things they sold right out of the gate. Probably not many. It took them a couple years, but then they were rolling. Like, Apple Watches are pretty, or any type of smartwatches are pretty popular now. I'm not saying everybody has them, but a lot of people have smartwatches.
Mr. V, it looks like you have something to say.
Well, I was just a little bit more curious, kind of to change gears a little bit, something a little bit more fun.
Hey guys, just a quick message. Every week I, Mr. V, work over 20 hours to bring you the most non-BS VeVe content. English is my second language, and there were nights we recorded until 1 a.m. My brain stopped processing, and I naturally spoke Vietnamese to him, and it got pretty weird. But that's just how dedicated we are to this podcast. In return, we ask you to enter a gentleman agreement. We will continue working until 1 a.m. for you, but we ask you to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a rating, and tweet at us to tell us what you think, because those comments will ultimately help us to refine the content just for you. That's it. That's all you need to do. Let's get back to it. When I get this kind of opportunity, I do like to ask this. Since having started on VeVe, was there anything that surprised you in the sense that you didn't think you'd like a particular character or type of digital collectible, but then it just kind of grew on you? It could be
a great question. Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I think one of the, even the collectibles in general, I didn't think I was going to get into. I thought I was only going to buy the comics initially, but the collectibles are pretty cool, right? And then of course I bought a Todd, and then I got a Superman. You kind of get it, and that's in the comic book world, and then the Star Wars world, which I like. The ones I did not like the Marvel Mighty, but now they've really grown on me. So to answer your question, I collect all of them. I have all of them. I love those Marvel.
No kidding.
They're like Funko Pops. I gotta like stay away from those Marvel Mighties. I love them. I'm trying to think of some of the other. I mean, a lot of them are really, really beautiful, and I like them a lot. You know, one that my daughter and wife really liked, and then I got it. I thought it was so goofy, but then it kind of grew on me was the Labbits, and especially the one that is puking out the rainbow. I don't know why they found it so amusing, but I had to get
Labicorn, right? It's called the Labicorn,
yeah. And so I have, you know, that one. And I mean, the art is really unbelievable. I have a Lucky, one of that funny bunny. and I didn't know a lot about these independent artists. I never heard of them, but I love all their art, and I have a bunch of their collectibles as well. So that's been fun. And there's where I see VeVe fulfilling, you know, everybody gets so mad at them, but there's where they have fulfilled some of their promises, which is we're going to not only have Disney here, but we're going to have some really awesome independent artists with awesome art. And we're going to introduce you to that. And so they've done that. That is a big thing that we sometimes, I think, even myself, you know, we forget about.
Yeah. Do you think you'd be open to considering those one-of-one art pieces?
I really wanted the Venom one.
Yeah.
I'm a big Venom fan. And I have Venom 1. It's right here on the wall, actually. You can see it.
That looks cool.
No, it's a Venom statue. There. See? Right there. That's that comic right there is the one that they're the one-of-one artist sketch. Ryan Stegman. Yeah. That one is signed by Stegman and Donnie Cates, the writer. But anyways, yeah, I would. They're just super expensive, right? They're, you know, the minimum one is like, you know, I think the minimum is like 3 or 4K. And then, of course, some of them have sold for 20K. That's just, I'm not really at this point ready to put that type of financial commitment in for one of those one-of-ones, and they're so unproven.
Right.
I think for me, I can't do that. Maybe other people obviously have more money. Did you get one? Do you have one?
Oh, no. Like that. I don't think in my lifetime I'd be able to touch one of those. But I was just curious to see, like, you know, once you get the ball rolling and explore these different kind of, what are these called? Verticals in terms of like or mediums, the way that they're presented differently. You know, you never know what might grow on you. And like for me, like the Disney lenticulars, I mean, there was a lot of bad stuff that happened. Like everyone lost on a lot on those, but they are very charming. I do like them, and I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah, they're really cool. They got such a bad rap. They came out that, you know, right in the peak of that. There's some weird gem thing going on and all the other stuff. Yeah, that was unfortunate. But that really was the peak of it all, I think. That was the peak of VeVe in terms of value.
So I have these 3 questions. You can pick any of them or all of them in any order you want to consider, okay? My first question is, how would you build a VeVe Comics portfolio with 1,000 gems? That's the first that's the first question. Second question is, what type of utilities you would like VeVe to implement with comics to make it more fun, more valuable? And also, the last question is there anything you think that are currently undervalued during this bear market? You know, can be the rarity, like the uncommon, rare, ultra rare, or can be a specific name of the comics?
Right.
Any of those questions?
So I'll try. The first one was, what will you do for 1,000 gems? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you know, of course you'd have to look, you know, are you trying to invest? Are you trying, you know, do you just love Spider-Man more than anything? You know, that's kind of, I think if you wanted to, you know, you can't go wrong. I have a website, VeVeRank.com. Most people know that. Buying any of the tier S comics, and you know, you can buy the commons. You don't need to get.
I actually love the website, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Looks really cool.
You can't go wrong buying these commons, and a lot of them are, you know, relatively cheap. So I mean, if you were to, you know, easy math, right? You could go in and buy one AF-15. I think you can never go wrong with AF-15. It's the most iconic one we have on the app. I mean, there might be others that people like more. Obviously, Captain America 1, which might be worth more. And there's, you know, Marvel Comics #1. But I think AF-15, Spider-Man's not going anywhere. You can get a common for maybe 350 gems. That would take a lot of your gems, I get it. But now I feel like that's the granddaddy to have. If you like comics, you can't go wrong with that. And then I would probably look at, you know, getting all the other tier S comics. You know, if you like Thor, you could get, you know, Journey to Mystery 83. we have so many of the really, really awesome grails. I mean, a lot of people like Iron Man. You can't go wrong with Tales of Suspense 39, right? And so maybe buying a couple of, because those aren't as expensive. So the Thor right now and Iron Man are around 40 gems. And so, do you buy a couple of those so you could keep one and sell one? So if you wait for the double, you sell it, then you got the first one for free. That's why I always think about it. You could buy 3 and then you could, that type of mentality. And really, if we do see the user base grow, fortunately, you would think not everybody's going to love Thor, but there'll be a couple people, right? Not everybody's going to love Iron Man, but there'll be a couple people. And so that price will push. I don't think you can go wrong with that. Do you like Miles Morales? You can get Ultimate Fallout 4. And once again, I think you buy common. You can buy a lot of them. You can get Ultimate Fallout 4, the common, for I think like 25 gems or something like that right now. So you could buy 4 of those, right? But it kind of comes down, it's always this mixture of investment and what do you like. And most time people have seen the MCU if they're into comics, and there's going to be some character that speaks to them, and they're going to want to grab that. If you wanted to go cheaper than that and stack more with your 1,000 gems, you could go to the ones that have 30,000 mints, which used to be the norm, and it's now a lot. But if you do the first appearance of Ghost Rider, if you do the first appearance of Doctor Strange, who we're very familiar with, all of these now, the commons are like, I think they might be under 10 gems. So you could grab 10 of those for 100 gems, and you probably would be in a good place. We're going to get another Doctor Strange movie. People really like Doctor Strange, and it's so when you're talking about a 30,000 mints, generally speaking, there's 20,000 common. So yeah. I think I'm somewhere, I might not have exact right, but it's something like that. So the question you have to ask is, if we could get more users, are there 20,000 people that are diehards Doctor Strange fans? Yeah, probably. That's how I'd spend my gems for that. So your next question was, I can't even remember what the next question was.
Yeah, so nowadays, VeVe would drop these comic books, right? People would collect them based on rarity, popularity. But then what is the next step? Because there's a lot of potential for digital comic books. What kind of utilities or innovation or improvements would you want VeVe to implement in order to make collecting digital comic books more exciting or make them more valuable? Just anything.
So I think when you're talking about utility, there's kind of like there's different categories. I'm sure they know much more than, but there's this category of owning something that allows you to have preference for something that's going to come in the future. That's this kind of airdrop concept, or you get whitelist. So they could always do that. So if you own all of Spider-Man, comics 1 through 10 and AF-15, then you get whitelisted for all Spider-Man's comics. And that's an interesting concept that is a Web3 thing. And I think they could continue with that. There's another thing would be this kind of access concept. So, we're, like at these various comic conventions, a lot of times when Marvel's there, they will do trailers there that they only show there and nowhere else. Like if you're not there, you can't see the trailer.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that just happened for Star Wars, right? They did this secret Ahsoka trailer. They launched an Ahsoka trailer, but then they did another one for the people there, and it's not. You can't see it. I think someone secretly put it online and it got banned off of YouTube. But maybe they could do something so you have a code so you could watch it one time. I don't know. Of course, then people are going to record it. But they could figure something out, right? And that's what people are seeking, right? Exclusive access to various things. And once again, you want to do things that don't cost additional money. I think that's what they're going to want to do. And giving access to a trailer that they've already created seems like couldn't cost them that much more money. But it's innovative. And then so that's just kind of accessing. We're going to allow you to do things and see things that other people don't. And then the other thing, which is interesting, which I think is it's just more, we're just seeing this thing blow up again and again and again. And that is that you can take the comics and display them in ways that in the Web3 world that we don't even know what it's going to be. That seems that's going to happen, right? In other words, in the Web3 world, I have my house, I got my comics, right? But that's great. But maybe it gets to the point where I've said this before and a lot of my stuff is when you do Zoom like this, you could, rather than choose to have your office, you could use the VeVe plugin, and now it's in my VeVe house. So I have my AF-15. But see, the other people, they don't have AF-15. So they can't have the AF-15 in their VeVe house when they have their Zoom. So it's kind of a flex piece, but it's also, you're able to show off some of the stuff you love. So those are things that you'll have that owning these digital collectibles will allow you to do that as well beyond, I know I have a lot of comics. They don't let me do anything. They just sit here. I like them, but they're not helping me on my Zoom call. I guess maybe they are helping me. I don't, what, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, they look great.
And then what was your last question? I can't remember what the last one was.
The last question is, what are some comic books on VeVe that you think are undervalued? And you can focus on the rarities, you can focus on certain brand names, just anything.
So I never use the word undervalued. I think that's a bad term because you can use it. I'm not telling you because
I want to end this call.
No. And then people always say, this one's being disrespected. That's another thing. I mean, it is what it is, right? With the people that are here and the money that they want to put into this thing, an AF-15 common is worth, 350 gems. That is what the market will bear. There's nothing, it's not good. It's not bad. It's not undervalued. That's the value, So the way I think about it more is what has the most potential for an upside and when will that happen? So in other words, when you say AF-15 has the most potential for upside, you have to also answer that question of when is that going to happen? Tomorrow, next day? Well, it's already at 350 gems. To double, it's got to get to 700. It's a lot of money for people. That could take a while. We got to get a bunch of people with a lot more money in that. That might actually take a longer period of time. Whereas when you're talking about, say, let's just go back to Tales of Suspense 39, first appearance of Iron Man. We know there's a lot of people like Iron Man. It's at 40 gems right now. I think it's fallen. It might even be at like 38 gems or something like that. The chance to get to 80. And then I always do this test, right? If you're a really big Iron Man fan, would you pay $80 for the first appearance and it's a relatively scarce comic? Yeah, that feels right.
Yeah.
And $80 is a lot of money for a lot of people, but it's not out of control, right? Like if you said $8,000, that's to spend on a comic. That's a lot of money for most people, right? You got to be pretty crazy to spend $8,000 on it. 80 seems reasonable. Even 100 kind of seems reasonable. I mean, there's not very many of them. I'm a huge Iron Man fan, so it passes all those tests. So I think any of those first appearance of characters that you love right now, they're probably they're something you could take a chance on. And I'm really into the commons. If you love any of the other covers or you love the secret rares and want to go pay that premium, those will move up accordingly. In fact, if they start moving, the secret rares generally are going to explode in value. Those are the ones where you could see a times 10. And so if you want to invest in those, that's possible. I always I want to buy more and be more liquid. So that's why I generally buy the commons. That's what I've been doing over the past 3, 4, or 5 months. So buying a bunch of, first appearance of Tony Stark and Iron Man seems like that makes sense. And the price point of where it's at right now, if it were to double, would still be within people's grasp.
So of the comics that have been released on VeVe, you have mentioned some like heavy hitters. However, with all of those VeVe exclusive covers, has any one of them caught your eye the most?
The VeVe exclusive cover. I like a lot of them. I'm trying to think of some offhand that I really like. Even the giant size X-Men one is pretty spectacular. I like the AF-15 one, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I did a video recently on some of the covers I liked, and now I'm trying to think of some of the covers I pointed out there for the VeVe exclusive ones. I think trying to think of some other ones that I like. Some of them are, anyways, yeah, a lot of the ones that have come out I like. I mean, even today's one, Havoc's first appearance, I really So it's I actually bought a lot of rare comics for the MCP. I mean, I like it, but I was trying to accumulate MCP points, and generally speaking, rare comics, best bang for your buck.
Okay.
So I do like a lot of those as well. So it's kind of like, what's your price point and then what do you like? But for me right now, like I said, I've been buying a lot of commons, but yeah, no, I do like a lot of their, but I can't think of any covers off. I'm sorry. I have to go watch my own video to find out what I like.
No, I hear you. I mean, like, not to put you on the spot or anything. Like, I didn't mean to do that and catch you off guard. But, one thing that has come up as frequently enough is what was the first VeVe exclusive cover? And what was it?
Fantastic Four or something or other.
Number 5?
14?
Was it 14? Oh, yeah, no, because 5 is Doctor Doom, right?
Yeah, 5 is Doctor Doom. It was The Watcher, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right. So, some people may have been targeting that one in particular. Just like if you're going to talk speculatively about those VeVe exclusive covers, that might be one of those,
That's a good one. I mean, and anything that separates first and separate it. And once again, I think other things have to go and accumulate in value. So you want to look at what people perceive as the most valuable thing, and then you work your way back. So in other words, people are like, nobody said this, but let's just pretend someone said when Tales of Suspense 39 came out, first appearance of Iron Man, oh, the commons are going to be worth 500. You'd say no, because the AF-15 commons are only worth 350. So if you add 500, your most 500 gems, and you're going to buy a comic, you're most likely going to buy AF-15. Now you could say, well, maybe the person already has one or whatever. Okay, those are all valid arguments too. But you see what I'm saying? Like, they're gonna grab the most, right now, Miles Morales SR is worth a lot. So if you had, and people generally think it still has more ups, so it's 8,000 gems or whatever. So most of the time people are like, if you get to this point, you're gonna transition and start buying Miles Morales SRs rather than that one particular. That's kind of what I think about. So in terms of that one, I don't know what a common is. Let's pretend, or excuse me, I don't know what the ultra rare for that Fantastic Four, the first. Let's just pretend it's 25 gems. Most likely, if you have 25 gems, you might take that 25 gems and buy a Iron Man rather than that one. But once everything else starts pushing up, then it would be a lot. It will also. But I think we have to wait for some of this other stuff to happen for those other. We became like secondary or thirdary. Is that a word? I don't even know. Keys, because I think people will still go after these bigger keys.
Yeah, that's definitely understandable. I could see that for sure. I get where you're going.
And it's people even ask me that about stuff that I've spent, money that I've invested in VeVe, and you got people can see what I all my stuff. I'm very public, so I've put in a lot of money into VeVe, because you look at my secret rare Miles or my secret rare Spider-Man, I put in a bunch of money, and people, what do they ask? They're like, why the hell did you do that? You should have just bought another AF-15, and AF-15 physical, like a real one, right?
Oh yeah.
Maybe they're right. Maybe I should have just bought another physical AF-15 and not bought all these VeVe. So it's tough to know.
Yeah, but at the very least, it's entertaining us 24/7, 365, right? You
Right.
can wake up any time and interact with these market and the collectibles and comics.
For sure.
So we are going through a pretty rough time for VeVe and for the community in general, because the team has missed several deadlines, and there's some like scandals and drama going on, like the over-the-counter trade and the thing with the OMI tokens. How do you stay motivated to continue long term? What do you say to yourself to justify that decision? And how do you envision VeVe in the near future?
Great questions. And I think you're lying to yourself if you don't hear that stuff and think about it. I think that's my personal, right? Some of it is, disturbing, it doesn't, you don't like to hear about it. And really, sometimes it's because you think that it's mistakes that the executive team there made, that it's not like something bad happened to them. They made that decision. So that makes it even that much more frustrating, right? So sometimes you hear like, oh, this this law was changed and they didn't know. So then they had to adapt to that. Well, that stinks and that happens, right? But no, like it seems like, the over-the-counter thing, like they made a decision to do that deal, and it was odd, right? It's out of the norm. We've never seen it before. Of course, and people say, well, they can do whatever they want. Of course they can do whatever they could, they could, tomorrow they can say they're going to start dropping secret rare Spider-Mans for, 1 gem. I mean, they can do, of course they can do it, but the consistency and kind of the rules that have been created in this ecosystem allow it to exist, because, we aren't kind of quote unquote understand the rules. If you keep changing the rules, you're right. It's pretty difficult as an investment and as people to want to, spend their money here, basically, in terms of from an investment. So I think hopefully they've learned from some of those decisions. I don't know, but I always try to initially, you just have to, like, whatever emotion you have, if you're mad, if you're frustrated, if you're happy, whatever, you got to go through that emotion, but then try to step back and look at it. I'm here because of the IP. I'm here because I believe digital collecting is going to be. Now, the question is VeVe going to be the dominant player in digital collecting? We don't know. Maybe they are a dominant player for 5 years and then they don't, like AOL was a dominant player on the internet and then they, cease to exist or whatever. Yahoo had its day. Very few companies really existed from the beginning of the internet and are still alive today, like an Amazon or something. Very few, right? So the question, and they morph into other companies and, the acquisition, all this stuff, right? So I'm along for that ride. At every level, I think that this is going to exist. Whether or not that's VeVe, I don't know. So in other words, let me just, I think in 10 years Marvel is going to exist and Spider-Man is going to be popular? Same with all the, same with this person named Mickey Mouse, right? So, that is good to go. Do I think that blockchain NFTs and that technology is going to continue to grow and it's in its total infancy? Yes. I mean, anybody who understands this, which everybody who's watching this channel does, they know that. I'm not making stuff up. I believe that. I could be wrong, right? But seems like I'm not wrong there. So in between those two pieces of VeVe and where that goes, and I get frustrated, why can't they get the search bar working and blah, blah, blah. Although they did do another update to the bar, which is great. But you know what I mean? So I'm willing to ride out some of the rough waters to see where we go. That's how I justify, like you said. Maybe I'm just making stuff up for myself.
Yeah,
I've already put in a bunch of money. I don't know.
I actually think the same way, because long term I'm very bullish, but the short term, the more I pay attention to the different events that happened recently, the more I feel like the team really needs some help in terms of finance, in terms of execution and operation too, because I did a lot of research for this podcast episode, and I went all the way back to the interview that David and Dan had back in like before 2020 to fundraise for VeVe. And even back then, the two biggest problems that David faced were fundraising, because they simply didn't have money, and hiring enough people. And for like 2 years until 2022, they really struggle until they have a better structure with Mitch coming in. And like you pointed out that, like the sprint cycle every 2 weeks, there's going to be new releases. I'm actually so happy that happened. And because I also work in tech, and it's awesome to see that progress and to see it in a more formal way instead of these once a month community update. We have these releases coming out every 2 weeks now, which is amazing. I think that, when the OTC trade happened, it happened on a Sunday right before I and Mr. V recorded that episode. And to be honest with you, I was nervous. And I was a little bit disappointed in a way. Like I told him, hey, I need 10 minutes to process this, because at first I thought Danny Boy's Lax wallet was hacked, because a lot of VeVe's wallet was hacked.
Yeah, that's what people said initially. Yeah.
Yeah, and Mr. V had this theory of maybe like an angry employee wanted to create a scandal before he left. So I was like, oh my God, what is going to happen with my collectibles? What is going to happen with VeVe? I spent a year and a half building the channel, building the reputation, investing a lot of money into the company. And now this hack is going to destroy everything. And then seeing them missing all the deadlines and stuff like that. And I even thought, I even have this doubts that, because David and Dan started from, like, especially David, he started being from the foundation of being a retail store owner in New Zealand, right? Because he was selling physical collectibles. Is this guy capable of running a global business? Because VeVe is global, where things and the laws and the challenges change on a daily basis and at a much bigger scale. Like, does he have the capability to do it? I had all these doubts, and I always want to be honest about it and not hype things up all the time. But then I kind of thought about, these companies struggle every single day. It's just that the fact that the team is so close to us make it seems more visible. And this is not me like justifying their mistakes and their deadlines. It's just that we are able to see through it so often. And then I also thought about, you know what? These two guys, they are small, unknown guys from New Zealand, pretty much like retail store owner. However, when they started in 2017, they are the folks who brought DC, Disney, USPS, Marvel to the NFT space. Think about that, like just two random guys bring all these giants to a totally new space with so much potential. Well, if they can do that for 4 to 5 years without any recognition, without any help support from the community, because VeVe didn't really start until October 2020 when Todd was released, right? They started in 2017. So if these guys with their background got us where we are today, then I hope they can overcome some challenges and weakness to take us to the next level.
I think you're right. I think you're 100% right. There's a lot of unknowns. And some of it is, I've run companies I started, my first company when I was very young, and it is every day is a challenge, and you don't know kind of what the hell's going on. You know what I mean? And so I see that with them. And so I understand that, you're running at 100 miles an hour trying to make decisions while you're running as fast as you can. But, and once again, not to make excuses for them. So they've got to try to navigate that. You need, and experienced people help you. Mitch seems like a person that can help them. They've got a lot of challenges. And some, it's interesting. One of the things that I've learned is, you have a lot of challenges, but if you can overcome the key ones, things get easier. And it seems like the key one, it continually changed. Like for them, one of the key ones was these bots. They just couldn't control them, right? The gem sales, all this stuff. So that, of course, that's their focus. Obviously, they were in the wrong blockchain. So they're just like, there's these hurdles. They can't even get to what they want to do because these new hurdles are presented in front of them. And we don't really know, right? We are only guessing. It seems like for me, what I think the biggest hurdle is right now, because they've just passed the hurdle that they seem, once again, this will always be there, but seem to have gotten a little bit more of their development under control because they now have a process in which they're able to release things on a bi-weekly basis, which is great. The next hurdle is they need to figure out a methodology and how to get new users. And when you think about that, you want to have an algorithm, a formula that works and is efficient, so then you can just continually pour money in it or people, and then it will just run faster and you'll be able to get more people. So of course, the classic one is, we're going to buy, $100 in ads, and that's going to give us, I'll make it up, 10 new users. So if we did 200, we get 20 new users. You see what I'm saying? Like that type of concept. That's obviously very simplistic. But I don't think we at least haven't seen they have nothing in that kind of, world that we've seen that they can get new users. I think what they're doing in the past is we're going to bring in a new IP. There's fans of that IP, and then we'll get a bunch of their fans. And that's how we're going to get new users. But that clearly is not working anymore. They added Rambo. That's a new IP.
Lamborghini too. Usually
you didn't really get anybody. So they need a new marketing, and I'm sure they have ideas. They need a new concept. And once you see that, that will be the next big hurdle. Maybe the VeVe is that attractive that it gets a bunch of new users, but that's only a one-time event, right? We want to see the process or algorithm that they have figured out that will allow them to get new users. And then, of course, the best case scenario is that if you could throw some money or more bodies, then you get more users, right? So it's just a limit of how much money can we raise, and we can get a bunch more users. But they haven't quite figured that out yet. Hopefully they will. I'll be interested to figure that out. But that's the next big challenges. I feel like hopefully we bottom out at, our user base, right? We're at 5,000, 4,000 users. Hopefully now we can try to climb out of it.
Definitely grateful for you, SleepynComics, for taking the time to join us on this podcast. It's been a lot of fun, and it's devoted and it's devoted to people like yourself who are well informed, and you're able to use your background knowledge from your personal life and bring it to the community. And you're an awesome asset to have around, and can't speak well enough of your impact. So thank you for that. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up your hats that you're selling right now. Anyone who's listening, please hit up SleepynComics. He's got some cool hats that are still available. I think you have a few.
Yep, they're almost sold out. So yeah, definitely they're $35 a shot. So let me know. And then $35 plus shipping. So DM me on Twitter or on IG, whatever. I think there's also a link on VeVe Rank, whatever, any which way you want to buy it. And I'm giving 80% of the profits I'm giving to a charity. So you're helping some people too.
Always a good thing. Always a good thing.
Always a good thing.
Yeah, I've been, so after every single recording, I always ask Mr. V, hey, are you ready for a new Zoom link? And I told him like, oh man, I am loving this conversation because your knowledge and experience and insight makes like our job so much easier because you can understand collecting. You've been with VeVe long enough. And what's kind of special to me personally is you have experience with software and tech tools. You understand the technical, the operational side of VeVe, which has been very, very helpful. Yeah, and I'm super grateful to have you on today. I hope to bring you on in the near future because things always change.
For sure. This was great.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and stories. Yeah. It's been awesome, man.
Thanks a lot. It was great. We definitely got to do it again. And as I say to you guys and anybody, my DMs are open on Twitter. So anybody asks me anything, I'll do my best to get back to you on anything.
That is it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have enjoyed the episode today. And if you have, remember that gentleman agreement. We will continue working until 1 a.m. just for you. But in return, we ask you to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out on the actionable and valuable insights, everything VeVe and Omi related. Don't forget to give us a rating and tweet at us to let us know what you think about the podcast so that we can refine the content better just for you. Thank you so much. We hope to see you again next time. Peace.